The workshop smelled of metal and coal dust as Claire stared at the half-finished sculpture. The strands of bulbs lay tangled like thoughts she couldn't untie. Outside, faint December winds rattled against the glass panes. She kept adjusting a wire that refused to stay in place. Nothing glowed the way it used to, and that terrified her. Claire lifted a bulb toward the ceiling, watching it catch the dim overhead light. The reflection was dull, like a tired eye refusing to wake. Her fingers trembled, betraying the pressure she tried to ignore. Tonight she should have felt excitement, anticipation, creation. Instead, she felt only the weight of silence filling the room. She stepped back, hoping distance would unlock clarity. But it didn't. The installation looked lifeless, a frozen idea trapped in metal. Her chest tightened as she imagined the looming deadline. This wasn't just any contract. It was the city's Christmas centerpiece, and now she stood in front of it completely directionless. Claire pressed a hand to her forehead, trying to slow her breathing. Her mind kept replaying the same question. What if the spark is gone? She had lived decades trusting her ability to create light from nothing. But tonight, the darkness felt like something alive around her. It whispered that she might never escape this creative void. She unplugged the test lights, plunging the workshop into deeper shadow. The click of the switch echoed louder than she expected. Her eyes strained to adjust, catching only silhouettes of failed ideas. Every surface seemed to reflect her exhaustion back at her. She whispered to herself, as if convincing someone else, "I can fix this." But even the words sounded thin in the vast, silent studio. The furnace hummed softly, trying to warm the unforgiving air. Claire rubbed her arms, remembering winters when creativity kept her warm. Now, cold seeped into her bones, lingering like doubt. She wondered when exactly the joy had started slipping away. She sat on the floor among scattered sketches and broken bulbs. The paper crinkled beneath her as she shifted her weight. Closing her eyes brought no relief, only more emptiness. There were no ideas waiting to be found tonight, only the quiet realization that she no longer knew how to shine. The next morning, Claire brewed coffee she barely tasted. Steam rose from the cup, blurring the window she stared through. Denver's snow-covered rooftops shimmered faintly under early light. She held the mug tightly, grounding herself in its warmth. But the unease from last night clung stubbornly to her. Her phone buzzed with a call from her sister Emily. Claire hesitated before answering, knowing Emily sensed everything. The familiar voice greeted her with gentle concern. "You sound tired," Emily said, not hiding her worry. Claire forced a laugh, but it came out brittle. Emily didn't let the act slide for long. She asked about the project, the season, the pressure. Claire dodged the details, offering vague reassurances. But Emily's silence on the line pressed her for honesty. "I don't know what's happening," Claire finally admitted. Emily spoke softly, as if holding her hand through the phone. "You've been pushing down old things for too long," she said. Claire's throat tightened at the familiar implication. Her past was something she rarely allowed daylight to touch, and hearing it spoken aloud made her pulse race. Memories she'd buried years ago flickered at the edges of her mind. A small apartment, a Christmas tree made of cardboard, the sound of rain hitting an old metal roof, a little girl drawing stars to distract herself from silence. Claire pushed the images away before they fully formed. "I just need inspiration," Claire insisted, though uncertainty lingered. Emily paused, choosing words carefully to avoid pushing. "Maybe inspiration isn't the problem," she murmured gently. "Maybe something inside you is asking to be seen." Claire swallowed hard, unable to deny the sting of truth. After they hung up, the apartment felt strangely loud. Every ticking second seemed to echo her unresolved fears. Claire pressed her palms against the counter, breathing slowly. She knew Emily was right, but facing the past felt impossible. So instead, she whispered, "I just need to find a spark." Later that evening, Claire walked through downtown Denver alone. The streets shimmered with thousands of festive lights. Children tugged at parents' hands, pointing at bright displays. Holiday music drifted through the cold, crisp air. Yet none of it reached the hollow place inside her. She paused beside a towering tree wrapped in golden spirals. People around her gasped at its beauty with warm delight. Claire tried to study it as a designer would, but all she felt was the sharp ache of comparison. "How did I forget how to feel this?" she wondered silently. Snowflakes fell gently, melting as they touched her coat. The delicate cold reminded her of childhood winters. Back then, even simple lights in a window seemed magical. Now, everything around her looked like someone else's story. a story she couldn't step into anymore. Claire wandered farther, hoping movement would loosen something. She passed performers, couples laughing, and sparkling shop windows. Every display seemed to mock her fading imagination. She slipped her hands into her pockets, fighting discouragement. The city glowed, alive and joyful, while she dimmed. Turning a corner, she found a modest notice board. A small flyer hung crookedly, announcing a local children's shelter. They were hosting a simple holiday gathering in need of volunteers. Claire read the words twice, drawn by something unexplainable. Maybe real light wasn't found in grand displays after all. She stood there longer than she expected, snow gathering at her feet. Something in her chest shifted, subtle but undeniable. A quiet thought whispered, "Go see what's there." It wasn't inspiration exactly, but it was a direction. And after weeks of stagnation, that felt like a gift. Claire tucked the flyer into her pocket with care. She breathed in the cold night, letting it clear her thoughts. Maybe she didn't need brilliance tonight, just movement. The city lights blurred slightly as she blinked away tension. She walked home wondering if hope could start this quietly. The next morning, Claire stood outside the children's shelter. The building was small, worn, but welcoming. Tiny cutout snowflakes fluttered in the windows. The sound of soft laughter drifted through the hallway. Claire exhaled, unsure what she was stepping into. Inside, a woman with warm eyes greeted her. "Thanks for coming," she said, shaking Claire's hand. Her name was Marlene, the shelter coordinator. She spoke with a comforting steadiness that eased Claire's nerves. "We keep things simple here, but the kids love it." Claire walked through the common room, observing everything quietly. The decorations were handmade, uneven, full of heart. Paper stars hung from strings, swaying gently above worn couches. Children's drawings covered the walls in vibrant colors. Nothing matched, yet everything felt deeply genuine. Marlene invited her to join preparations for a small event. "We could use help with lights, even basic ones," she said. Claire hesitated, unsure she could offer anything meaningful. But the sincerity in Marlene's smile softened her resistance. "Okay," Claire whispered, surprising herself. They walked into a supply closet filled with modest materials. Old string lights, colored paper, and used glue sticks lined the shelves. Claire ran her fingers over a tangled cord, recognizing the chaos. It wasn't the glamorous work she was used to, but it felt real. A tiny warmth flickered somewhere deep inside her. Children peeked around the doorway, curious about the newcomer. Claire offered a small wave, receiving shy smiles in return. Their presence stirred something gentle within her, a softness she hadn't felt in a long time. This place had a different kind of light. As she helped sort supplies, her mind felt strangely clearer. There was no pressure here, no looming audience, just honest effort and small hands waiting to create. She realized she was breathing easier than she had in days. Something was shifting, though she didn't know what yet. In the afternoon, Claire sat at a small craft table. Children buzzed around her, busy with their own creations. She quietly sorted colorful papers when a little voice spoke. "Do you like stars?" the girl asked gently. Claire looked up into curious brown eyes. The girl's name was Lily, no more than 8. She held a stack of star drawings in her hands. Each star was uneven, charmingly crooked, full of life. Claire felt an unexpected ache bloom in her chest. She used to draw stars exactly like these. Lily sat beside her, spreading the drawings across the table. She pointed proudly at one with bent edges. "This one is my favorite," she said with a grin. "It looks like it's trying really hard to shine." Claire's breath caught at the innocence of the words. Something warm surged through her, soft but powerful. The memory of her younger self flickered vividly. A small girl drawing stars to escape the dark. A girl who believed imperfect light still mattered. Claire blinked rapidly, overwhelmed by the recognition. Lily leaned close, whispering conspiratorially, "I make new stars when I feel weird inside." Her honesty struck Claire with disarming clarity. The room around them seemed too quiet for a moment. Claire realized she hadn't created from feeling in years. She picked up one of the crooked stars carefully. The paper felt fragile, like a childhood memory. A tremor of inspiration sparked beneath her exhaustion. Not a burst, not a revelation, just a beginning. A warmth she thought she had lost forever. Claire smiled at Lily, the first genuine smile in weeks. "Would you show me how you make them?" she asked softly. Lily beamed, nodding enthusiastically as she gathered supplies. Claire felt something shift deep within her chest. A small light, imperfect but alive. began to glow again. Back home, Claire placed Lily's crooked star on her desk. It sat there like a tiny heartbeat in the quiet room. She hoped it would unlock something the way it had yesterday. But the blank pages waited, heavy and uncooperative, and the spark inside her flickered uncertainly. She sketched a curve of light, then erased it angrily. Nothing looked right, nothing carried the softness she felt. The design felt forced, artificial, hollow in its shine. She pressed her pencil harder, trying to break through the fog, but the page only filled with frustration. Claire rose abruptly, pacing the studio floor. The echo of her footsteps matched the beat of her pulse. She hated feeling this helpless, this creatively paralyzed. The city needed a masterpiece, not hesitation. And she was drowning in her own expectations. She returned to the sculpture frame and touched its cold edges. Wires resisted her attempts to shape them, stubborn and rigid. It reminded her of how tightly she held herself together. Too tight to bend, too tight to breathe freely. The metal felt like a mirror she didn't want to face. She sank into her chair, rubbing her temples slowly. Lily's words echoed, "When I feel weird inside." Maybe Claire was more tangled than the wires themselves. The thought unsettled her, stirring old shadows. Shadows she had no desire to revisit. She reached again for the crooked star, tracing its uneven tips. Something about its imperfection tempted her back to honesty. But honesty meant feeling things she'd buried deeply. She wasn't sure she could survive opening that door. Her breath trembled at the possibility of unraveling. By evening, she admitted defeat and stopped working. The silence in the room felt heavier than before. But the star remained on her desk, quietly waiting, a reminder that beginnings are rarely smooth or tidy. Claire whispered, "I'll try again tomorrow," not fully believing it. Claire returned to the shelter the next morning. The moment she entered, laughter floated toward her. Children ran between tables with scraps of paper in hand. Warmth filled the room like a gentle sunrise. The heaviness in Claire's chest eased just slightly. Lily ran up to her with bright excitement. "I saved you a seat," she announced proudly. She pulled Claire toward a table covered in craft supplies. Papers of every color lay scattered like confetti. Something inside Claire softened at the gesture. They began folding lanterns out of thin sheets. Lily showed her how to crease the edges carefully. Claire followed the steps, surprised by the calm they brought. Her fingers moved gently, remembering joy through motion. This was creation without pressure, without perfection. Other kids joined them, asking Claire for help. She guided small hands through tricky folds. Each lantern glowed faintly when held up to the light. Children's eyes sparkled with pride at their creations, and Claire felt a warmth she hadn't known in months. Marlene approached, watching them with a soft smile. "You're good with them," she said quietly. Claire swallowed, unsure how to respond. She had never seen herself through that lens before. Yet the comment settled gently inside her heart. As the lanterns piled up, the table looked like a tiny festival. Soft colors, delicate shapes, hopeful little lights. Claire realized she was smiling without noticing. Something within her was unwinding, thread by thread. Each small lantern felt like a fragile victory. When she finally stood to leave, Lily hugged her tightly. "Come back tomorrow?" the girl asked with hopeful eyes. Claire felt a tug she didn't want to ignore. "Yeah," she whispered, surprised at her certainty. Because here, her light felt possible again. The next day, Claire returned with a hesitant heart. The shelter felt warm, but something inside her felt restless. Lily welcomed her with another drawing in hand. This one showed a little girl beneath a crooked star. The image struck Claire before she even understood why. She stared at the drawing, feeling her breath shorten. Something about the girl's posture mirrored her own childhood. The small shoulders, the quiet eyes, the lonely space. It hit her like a wave she hadn't braced for. Old memories pressed against the walls she'd built. A forgotten Christmas returned in painful detail. A cold apartment lit only by a weak lamp. Her mother working late, leaving her alone to dream. A cardboard tree decorated with paper stars she made herself. Loneliness wrapped around her like another blanket. Claire set the drawing down, her hands trembling slightly. The noise of the room faded into a distant hum. Lily looked up at her, sensing something was wrong. But Claire forced a smile, unwilling to break here. She couldn't let those memories swallow her now. Marlene approached, asking gently if she was all right. Claire nodded too quickly, avoiding the woman's eyes. She pretended to focus on crafting, but her mind spun wildly. Every fold of paper felt heavier than it should. The past had cracked open without permission. She excused herself and walked to the hallway. Cold air from a nearby vent brushed her skin. She pressed a hand to her chest, grounding herself slowly. The ache from childhood felt sharper than expected. It whispered truths she had long refused to feel. She returned to the room with a fragile steadiness. Lily offered her a quiet smile, as if sensing the shift. Claire sat beside her again, breathing through the ache. The pain didn't fade, but she didn't run from it. Something had been awakened, and she wasn't sure what came next. By the time Claire returned home, exhaustion clung to her. She looked at her unfinished sculpture with hollow eyes. The deadline glared at her from the calendar. Pressure tightened around her like a vice. She felt moments from falling apart. Her phone buzzed with a message from the city board. They wanted updates, sketches, progress, anything. Claire stared at the screen, fingers frozen. She had nothing to offer them but tangled wires. Failure hovered like a storm cloud overhead. She tried drawing again, pushing through her fatigue. Lines wobbled, ideas collapsed before fully forming. Each attempt made her chest heavier and her pulse faster. She grabbed her hair, exhaling shakily in frustration. She was slipping, and she knew it. Claire stepped outside for air, leaning on the cold railing. Snowflakes fell silently, landing on her trembling hands. The night felt too big, too empty around her. She wondered if she should walk away from everything. Let the city find someone stronger, brighter, steadier. Inside, her studio lights buzzed unevenly. Their flicker mirrored the chaos in her mind. The sculpture's frame looked like a failure in metal. She felt herself crumpling under impossible expectations. Tears finally escaped, silent and unrestrained. She collapsed into a chair, burying her face in her hands. Thoughts tumbled uncontrollably through her, sharp and frantic. She felt ashamed of her weakness, frightened by her limits. The weight of the past and present merged painfully. She whispered, "I can't do this anymore." Hours passed before she could breathe steadily again. She stared at the ceiling, feeling completely emptied. The room looked unfamiliar, distant, unkind. In this moment, she doubted ever shining again. But deep down, something small refused to fully break. The next morning, Claire forced herself back to the shelter. She felt fragile, as though one touch could unravel her. But Lily greeted her with a quiet, knowing smile. The girl held something behind her back protectively. "Made this for you," she whispered shyly. Lily revealed a star patched together with tape. Its points were uneven, its surface wrinkled gently, but it glowed with a charm no perfection could match. "It's for when you forget how to shine," Lily said. The words pierced straight through Claire's defenses. Claire felt her throat tighten with unexpected emotion. She held the star delicately, as if it might vanish. Warmth spread through her chest with startling intensity. Someone saw her, even in her dimmest moments, and that truth shook her deeply. She knelt to Lily's height, struggling to speak. "Why did you make this for me?" she finally asked. Lily shrugged softly, her answer simple and sincere. "Because sometimes you look like you need light too." Claire blinked back tears at the innocent wisdom. Marlene watched from across the room, understanding everything. She nodded at Claire with a quiet encouragement. Claire felt something loosen inside her, gently and completely. Not a dramatic breakthrough, just a profound release. A letting go of the hardness she'd carried for years. She sat with Lily for the rest of the afternoon. They crafted without pressure, without expectations. Her breathing eased, her shoulders softened slowly. The world felt a little less heavy, a little more kind. The crooked star rested safely in her pocket. That night, Claire returned home with a calmer heart. She placed Lily's star beside the unfinished sculpture. For the first time in weeks, she didn't feel afraid of it. She sensed a beginning quietly forming inside her. A light returning, imperfect but undeniably real. The next morning, Claire woke with an unexpected calm. The room felt softer, less suffocating than before. She walked to her desk and lifted Lily's patched star. Its gentle imperfections steadied her trembling thoughts. She felt ready, not to finish, just to begin again. She pulled out a fresh sheet of paper and exhaled deeply. This time she didn't think about the city or expectations. She let her hand move, guided by memory and honesty. Lines curved softly, shaped by warmth instead of fear. Her first sketch in weeks felt alive. She sketched crooked stars, small lanterns, gentle arches, nothing grand, nothing forced, just quiet symbols of hope. Her pencil glided with a rhythm she'd forgotten existed. It felt like breathing freely after a long confinement. The simplicity filled her with unexpected satisfaction. Claire then turned to the sculpture frame with new eyes. Its metal edges no longer looked like failures. They were raw beginnings, waiting for her truth. She touched the frame, imagining light unfolding softly. The vision was smaller but more human than before. Hours passed unnoticed as she reshaped wires carefully. Her hands worked with intention instead of desperation. Every curve held the memory of Lily's little lanterns. Every angle carried the humility of imperfect stars. The piece slowly transformed under her steady focus. She stepped back and studied the new structure. It wasn't finished, but it finally had a heart. Something warm pulsed through her as she observed it. A sense of acceptance she hadn't felt in years. "Maybe this is what I was meant to make," she whispered. She cleaned her workspace with deliberate gentleness. The clutter of failure no longer haunted her eyes. The air felt lighter, touched by possibility again. Tomorrow, she would keep shaping, keep breathing, keep trying. Tonight, she welcomed the quiet glow returning within her. Over the next days, Claire worked with renewed purpose. Her studio became a space of calm instead of chaos. Soft music played in the background as she sculpted. Ideas flowed, not as explosions, but steady streams. The creation felt more honest than anything before. She returned to the shelter to share her progress. Lily gasped at the sketches, her eyes bright with pride. Other children gathered, pointing at details excitedly. Their admiration felt pure, untouched by expectations. Claire's heart warmed at their unfiltered reactions. "Do you want to help with the real thing?" she asked. The room erupted with delighted cheers from the kids. They huddled around her as she explained tiny tasks. Cutting paper shapes, folding stars, painting soft hues. The project transformed into a shared creation. Marlene watched the collaboration with teary eyes. "You're giving them something they'll remember," she said. Claire felt the statement sink deeply into her spirit. She had never realized how much she needed this place, how much she needed to be seen beyond her craft. Back in the studio, their small contributions guided her. Paper stars shaped the sculpture's angles with gentle meaning. Soft colors from children's hands softened the metal lines. It became a tapestry of lives, memories, and second chances. Claire felt illuminated not by success, but by connection. She worked late into the night, yet felt no fatigue. The sculpture grew into a quiet constellation of warmth. Each crooked star echoed Lily's gift resting nearby. Her studio glowed with scattered reflections and hope. For the first time, the work felt truly hers. When she finally dimmed the lights, she stood in awe. The sculpture shimmered with imperfect, humble beauty. It held the fingerprints of every child who helped. It carried her own healing woven through every wire. And she whispered, "This is the light I was missing." Installation day arrived under a crisp winter sky. Claire watched the workers lift the sculpture carefully. People gathered, curious about the new centerpiece. She felt her heart thrum with both nerves and pride. This wasn't perfection, it was truth made visible. The city board members approached with expectant eyes. Claire braced herself, unsure how they'd react. But before she could speak, Marlene and the children arrived. Their presence strengthened her trembling confidence. She wasn't standing alone anymore. Lily held Claire's hand tightly as the countdown began. "Ready?" the little girl whispered with bright excitement. Claire nodded, feeling her chest swell with meaning. This moment belonged to both of them, equally. The crowd hushed in anticipation. At 0, the lights flickered gently to life, not in a blinding burst, but in a soft, unfolding glow. Crooked stars shimmered with humble brilliance. Lantern-like arches cast warm patterns across the square. The crowd gasped at its quiet, human beauty. People stepped closer, touched by the simplicity. Parents pointed out the handmade details to their children. Some smiled. Others wiped tears without explanation. The piece didn't shout, it breathed, and its warmth settled into the hearts of everyone there. A board member approached Claire with softened eyes. "This is different," she said, breathless. "It feels alive. It feels like us." Her words filled Claire with grateful relief. She had chosen vulnerability and been met with grace. Claire looked down at Lily, who squeezed her hand again. The lights reflected in the girl's shining eyes. For the first time, Claire felt wholly proud of herself. Not for impressing the city, but for rediscovering her truth. Her heart glowed brighter than the installation itself. Later that week, Claire visited the shelter once more. The children ran to her, eager to share new drawings. Lily stood quietly behind them, holding a folded paper. Claire knelt, opening her arms with a gentle smile. The girl stepped forward and hugged her tightly. They sat at their usual table, now scattered with supplies. Lily unfolded a drawing of two figures holding stars, one tall, one small, connected by a thread of light. Claire felt her eyes sting with emotion instantly. She recognized the meaning without any explanation. Marlene joined them with a warm, knowing expression. "She talks about you a lot," she said softly. Claire felt a quiet ache bloom at the thought. To be remembered that way felt profoundly healing. Her own heart expanded with new purpose. She asked Marlene gently about Lily's story. The coordinator hesitated, choosing her words carefully. "She's had a hard year, more than most her age should." Though the details stayed private, Claire understood enough. Their mirrored loneliness made sudden, tender sense. Claire reached over and held Lily's tiny hand. "You're really special. You know that," she whispered. Lily shrugged shyly, but her smile betrayed the truth. They had found comfort in each other's shadows. A bond formed not by chance, but by recognition. The afternoon passed with light-hearted crafting. Yet beneath the laughter, Claire felt something deeper. A clarity she hadn't expected, steady and strong. She wanted to stay in Lily's life, not temporarily, truly. That desire rooted itself firmly inside her. As she walked home, snow whispering under her boots, Claire felt the threads of her past and present weaving. Not perfectly, not seamlessly, but honestly. She wasn't just healing, she was becoming whole. And Lily's small handprint lived warm against her heart. On Christmas Eve, Claire returned to the city square. The installation glowed with gentle brilliance. Crowds gathered quietly, warmed by the soft light. Snow fell in slow, delicate patterns around them. The world felt tender, as if holding its breath. Lily arrived bundled in a bright red coat. She rushed into Claire's arms with joyful warmth. Together they approached the sculpture's center arch. Claire carried a tiny lantern they made together. It flickered softly, as if aware of its moment. "Ready to add ours?" Claire asked softly. Lily nodded, her eyes full of shining trust. They positioned the lantern on a small metal hook. Its light melted into the sculpture's larger glow, a perfect imperfection joining the constellation. People watched quietly as the lantern settled. Some whispered at the beauty of the gentle gesture. Claire felt her chest fill with overwhelming peace. This wasn't a grand finale, it was a quiet truth. A truth she had searched for her entire life. Lily leaned her head against Claire's side. "I like your light," she murmured softly. Claire's breath caught in her throat once again. No award, no praise, no applause had ever meant more. Love, simple and unguarded, was the brightest light. They stood together beneath the falling snow. The installation glimmered like a sky made humble. Claire felt her past settle softly instead of painfully. She had reclaimed parts of herself she thought were lost, and she had found a purpose beyond creation itself. As midnight approached, Claire made a silent promise to keep choosing connection over perfection. Always. To protect the light she and Lily had sparked together. To honor every crooked star that shaped her journey. And to remember, the truest light is the one that remains.